This is The Business of Architecture. Helping architects conquer the world. And here's your host, Enoch Sears.
So I'd like to welcome everybody out here today. This is the Business of Architecture blog webcast, and today we have the honor of having Oscia Wilson with us. She is the owner of Boiled Architecture, and Oscia's been doing some very, very cool things that I've been watching for a while now, and she was gracious enough to let us have some time and talk a little bit about what she does at her firm. So Oscia, the first question I had for you was, what question should I be asking you?
Well, I'm sure that you can think of all the right questions to ask me, but, I get a lot of questions about how did you do it with that sort of, open, I don't even know where to start kind of question from a lot of architects, especially the young ones. And I like to say that I don't have a magic formula. I did it because I had a lot of help and I worked really hard, and here's what I did. And so, I lay out the basic formula. I have a husband, and he paid all the bills for the first year. So I like to be really frank about that because I'll be completely transparent about how much money it really takes to start a firm. Because if you don't know that going in, you're just going to fail. So I don't think it does anybody any good to pretend like, so I sort of made this out of nowhere. It takes money to do it. So the second thing I did was I started taking business classes for 9 months before I ever launched the firm, every weekend. So, I had money, I had some knowledge, of course not nearly enough money. I, took all my savings and took out loans to do it. I got business knowledge. The third thing I did, which, I don't see a lot of other architects who go out on their own doing, is that I hired the most experienced people that I could find immediately. So I knew from the beginning that it wasn't something I could do on my own, that I had to have partners. And since I couldn't find founding partners who were on the same wavelength and ready to quit their jobs, I had to get those partners to hiring. So the first 2 hires that I made were gentlemen in their 60s. And the reason was that they had connections, they had experience, nothing was going to faze them. So that was absolutely the best decision that I made. So when I get that kind of blank question, like how'd you do it, those are the 3 things I tell people.
Awesome. So that really is a lot of information there. And can you share with us? You said you don't mind sharing how much money it takes to launch an architecture firm. Obviously, it would vary from firm to firm. But how much money realistically, if you can give us a ballpark figure, does it take to do what you did?
That's a good question, and I wish I had sat down and added it up before I got to you. But let's see. So I put $20,000 in cash right away. And then I worked for free for the first year. So you can add in whatever you think your wages are worth for that period of time. Mm-hmm. And then I also took out loans of about $40,000 and put that in basically paying for my employees. That's what that went for. Okay. So roughly $60,000 plus your own wages as an owner for the first nearly a year, I would say.
Okay. And now $40,000 for 2 experienced architects, that sounds a little bit on the low side.
Yep.
Was that sort of a part-time arrangement? How did you accomplish that?
Yeah, absolutely. I could only afford to hire them part-time. So I would say they worked 20 hours a week starting out. And then because I chose people who were well connected, we were able to start getting a little bit of income coming in the second or third month right away. And then after that, it was not a problem paying them. It was a problem paying me, but it was not a problem paying them.
Awesome. And how did you find these gentlemen? I know that with the job market right now, it seems to me that I've seen a lot of very experienced architects out there who, are just like you said. It sounds like you hooked up with some great guys that have done some great things, and they're looking for opportunities. How hard was it to find those gentlemen?
It is hard to find the right fit. And you're right that there are a lot of people who are unemployed, And so when I did advertise, I advertised on Craigslist through the AIA and just through my friends' networks. And I got a lot of applications each time that I've hired. But the problem is that because I'm running a startup, it is a very non-traditional role for an architect. So I find very few people who are well suited to the role. And what I mean by that is that when you're running a 3-person firm or a 4-person firm, an architect is not just an architect. They have to do project management, design, construction documents. They even have to do business development. They have to be comfortable with all of those roles. And I find it very difficult to find architects who are outgoing enough to want to meet people and follow up with those relationships and do the kinds of things it takes to be part of a startup.
Very interesting. And I mean, just hearing it from my side, that's a big package. I mean, you're talking about someone who's outgoing. A lot of architects that are really great at their craft prefer to be inside of a room. They're not really people-to-people person, I've noticed. Mm-hmm. Out of those qualities, which one would you say is the most important? Is the outgoing side the most important? Technical competence?
I would say open communication is the most important. So willing to talk about one's own mistakes and willing to ask uncomfortable questions. Those are the two most important things because, you're an architect, which means you're running a team. You have a whole team, especially in my firm where we're doing forms of integrated project delivery, where in addition to having our engineers that we are collaborating with and the owner, we also have a whole bunch of builders. So you've got all these people in the room, all of whom have really different, cultural backgrounds that they're coming from. And you have to be brave enough to say, I don't get this. What does this mean? And, maybe it's just me, but that sounded wrong, It's tough to find architects who are able to do that effectively.
You bet, because, when we say we did something wrong, we're always afraid there's going to be a lawsuit coming down the pipes, right?
Yeah.
Now, and how do you discern that in an interview? How did you vet these candidates? Because I could see how that would be difficult to find that quality through an interview process, or how did you find that?
Okay, you're going to think this is weird, but I actually held my interviews in group format. So I had, I think, 12 people come to interview all at one time in one big room for one position. And I had a series of questions that I asked, and we went around the table and each person answered the question. So it was, by design, a slightly stressful environment where they were having to answer questions knowing that they were being evaluated and judged by their very competitors. And mostly I did that because it was an efficient use of my time, but I realized that as a nice side effect, it was also going to suss out people who were able to hold their own in a difficult situation. And actually 2 people declined to even apply because of that situation, and I thought that's a good way of weeding out people who are not going to be able to cut it.
Yeah, you bet, absolutely. And that blows my mind as something ultra creative. Is that an idea that you came up with on your own? Did you find that idea through some business courses that you took?
I know that that's pretty common in a retail environment.
Okay.
And so I spent a lot of time thinking about things I can steal from other industries and apply to architecture. And, because if you take it from another industry, you don't have the lens of prejudice to look through of what everybody's told you is supposed to be the right way to do something. And so, I heard of that and it just seemed to make a lot of sense to me, so I didn't even think twice about using it for architecture.
Awesome. One thing I noticed that looking at your LinkedIn profile is that you're also doing an MBA currently, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So when I said I started taking business classes on Saturdays, I was actually enrolled in an MBA program and still am, a part-time program at University of California at Berkeley, designed for working people. And so I've been taking classes on Saturdays for nearly 3 years now. I'm almost done. So I did that specifically because I didn't want to be an architect. I wanted to be a CEO. So I am an architect, and that helps me run an architecture firm. But the reason I think that most architects struggle when they go out on their own is because they think of themselves as architects. And I think you need to absolutely dispel that myth. When you go out on your own, you are an entrepreneur. You are a CEO, period. You're not an architect anymore. So you need to spend 90% of your time thinking about how you run an organization, how you structure it, how you get clients, how you're going to build them, how you're going to pay people, how you're going to make an employee manual. That's what you spend your time on. If you think you can do both, you're wrong. You're just wrong. So if you do any back of envelope math, basic round numbers, how much do you think you can get an hour as an architect? Let's say you're in San Francisco, let's say 120, okay? If you're in any other city, it'll be smaller. At 120 an hour, how many hours do you really think you can work on billable hours? Let's say maximum your 80% utilization. So that doesn't come out to very much money, right? So, and that assumes that you have all the work that you can get. But in reality, it's a full-time job just to get the work. So how do you really think you're going to be able to bring in that many clients on that extra 20% of your time, like 1 day a week doing business development? It literally doesn't work out. Like, it's just not reality. So I did that back of the envelope math before I started. And what I saw was that it didn't seem like I could make a living unless I had a team of at least 3 to 4 people minimum. So I saw that right away because I knew that it takes a full-time job to get the work and at least one full-time job to do the work. And then that ratio of one non-billable person to one billable person, it just doesn't work out. You need a few billable people to support one person who's non-billable. So I know I just used a lot of big words and sometimes it's confusing, but none of those concepts are difficult. I guarantee anybody who's smart enough to be an architect is smart enough to learn them. So there is one book that I can recommend that covers all of these terms and some basic calculations.
Please.
Gosh, I thought I would have had it on my desk. But it is called Financial Management for Design Professionals.
Okay.
So I recommend that.
Yeah. Is that by Steve Wintner?
I can actually grab it. I don't know if you have a way of editing this video so that you take out the time it takes for me to run.
We do it all live, so let's just skip over that. We'll add this to the show notes. We can put a little link on there to the book that you're talking about.
Great.
Now, if it's the book I'm thinking about, that's a hefty tome.
It's a small book, the one I'm talking about. It's only half an inch thick. I guarantee you can do it.
Nice. So, Oscia, the other thing I'm thinking about when I hear about what you're saying is I think you have a keenly entrepreneurial mind. The way that you've attacked this and the way that you've analyzed architecture. So, was there ever a moment, or how did you decide to go through with architecture? Because in my mind, from my perspective, there's lots of entrepreneurial pursuits out there, and arguably some of them would be better suited to your talents and your capabilities and might provide more of a payoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you justify staying in the field of architecture?
So I started out as an architect. I never considered doing anything else since I was 12. I wanted to do that because it combined art and science, and I was good at both, so I thought that'd be a great thing to do. I also had this strange thought that it would be great for a woman who was going to have kids, because I thought, I could do that from home someday.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Okay.
But I laugh because unless you're working on your own, chances are you're stuck in a firm that expects, 50 hours a week, which is really not conducive to raising kids. But that's a whole other story. Once I got into architecture, I found that I liked it. I was very good at it. And it wasn't really, I didn't really get into entrepreneurship or the business side of it until I started researching integrated project delivery. And so the way that this happened was I was researching integrated project delivery, and in so doing, I had to learn a lot about contracts and delivery methods. I had to learn what was the difference between design bid build and design build and integrated project delivery and, pre-construction services and CM at risk. And those were things that I really had never thought about before. And they're all about management structures, right? It's very little to do with how do you design a building, and it's everything to do with how do you manage teams and how do you get those teams to design a building efficiently. And so when I started learning about these things, I thought, wow, I'm really good at it. I like this. I could do this. I could be a project manager, right? That was the next mental leap for me. I could do project management instead of architecture. Well, then I had to start reading about the contracts themselves and learning about the liability risks. Because I was leading a research committee on IPD. And so I needed to understand the legal risks. And so I started vetting the contract language very carefully with several lawyers. And in doing that, I found that I had a real interest and aptitude for understanding the legal side of architecture. And because so few architects are interested at all in that, I thought, well, maybe that's a good niche for me. Maybe that's what I should do with my career. And so I started talking and writing about the legal and the business side of architecture and how it works. And found that the place where I worked was pretty traditional and not interested in changing any of those things to be doing progressive project delivery. And so I realized that if I wanted to work at a place that did IPD, I might have to actually create that place myself. Because there was such a direct connection between a culture of a company and the way that it operates its projects. And so when I made that mental leap, like, oh, it might actually be easier to create a brand new culture than to try to change an existing culture, that's when I started to think, maybe I could be an entrepreneur. Maybe I could be the one owning the business. And then after that, that's when I got into the MBA program to see if I liked it. And at that time, I still was kind of considering maybe I climbed the corporate ladder instead of creating my own corporate ladder. But, you know, the economy means that people are not retiring. And I found that there wasn't a lot of opportunity to move up the corporate ladder at the pace that I was capable of. And so that's when I decided, all right, I'm going out on my own.
Wow, so that's a good segue to ask, I guess, what's your primary motivation to do it on your own? Was the company culture the major thing?
Yeah, the company culture is the major thing for me.
Okay.
Because I think that is the key to high quality deliverables. I think that's the key to happiness in general.
Awesome.
And so I find that I get unbelievable performance out of my employees, not because I pay them better, not because they're smarter than other employees, but because I do this strange thing called train them and trust them. Train them to do what they're supposed to do, and then I trust them to do it on their own schedule in a way that they want to do it. And then we talk about it openly, and lo and behold, you know, great things happen. And all that is just company culture. It's just running a company well.
Absolutely. And I'm going to read something off your website here that sort of ties into that I thought was very interesting. It's you talking about being transparent on projects. And if I may, it says, I want my team to be transparent on projects, so internally we are 100% transparent with other financial information, strategic goals, even salaries. Mm-hmm. And that's something in almost in the architecture industry, there's almost like a taboo in terms of discussing salaries. And so I find that's an interesting reflection on your transparency. How do you what's the advantage of having that transparency? Is it just a philosophical preference? You mentioned it makes happier employees. Talk about that.
This comes directly from integrated project delivery. One of the main tenets of integrated project delivery is that people will not collaborate unless they trust each other. And people cannot trust each other unless everything is transparent. So there's one shared file storage for everybody, everybody's open books, you know, all of that. Because they've tied their profits together, and so they need to feel comfortable that they can trust each other. So I took that, as an inspiration. I said, well, if I want my company to be good at IPD, we should operate the same way internally. And so we are 100% transparent with our financials. So I keep my books on, I use Zoho, that's the program I use, and all my employees have the same level of admin rights that I do, so they can see all of the profit and loss statements, the bank balance and all of that. And our salaries we have the first discussion that we had when we set our pay, went like this. Hey guys, what should we pay ourselves? Like, here's how much money we're bringing in. Here's how much I think we can afford. Should we pay ourselves different rates according to our levels of experience? Should we pay ourselves different rates according to how important we are? So we had these conversations and ultimately decided that there was one base rate of pay for all the architects. So not only are we transparent, but we are actually equal in pay for all of the architects who are, sort of more or less in the same range of experience. And
go ahead.
We hired a new employee, we went through that same discussion. We would discuss with the employee at the table, well, what do we think that we should pay this new employee and why? And do you agree with our methodology?
Wonderful. And it sounds like this would give architects and employees in general a feeling of ownership. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, that's exactly the goal. Ownership and also trust. I mean, so my general rule of management is if you're trying to hide something, then there might be something wrong with it. Mm. So the only files that we have that are not transparent to the whole company are the legal employee files. Because the individual employee files have to remain separate because of legal requirements. So, disciplinary actions or something like that have to stay hidden for legal reasons, and everything else is shared. And so there's an element of trust in, I'm the only officer at the moment, but that won't always be true. And I need everybody in the whole company to trust all of the officers. And how are they going to trust us if we're hiding things? The ownership part, I find the best way to foster ownership is, well, first of all, you can literally offer people ownership, which I do. And then we don't actually have any other owners other than me at the moment, but that will change. Mm-hmm. But in place of literal ownership, what we do is we have a period every year, so we've had 2 of them so far, where we set the strategic goals for the firm as a group. And everybody working at the firm has equal say in what the goals of the firm are. And that includes what kind of projects we do, how much money we want to make, how many hours we want to work, where we want to have the office, all those things. And then we, throughout the year, measure our progress towards those goals. And we